So the next time you complain to HR about a coworker's tardiness or, whine to your spouse about a splitting headache, you are unwittingly quoting a 400-year-old dead guy.
Which is just such a wild concept to wrap your head around,
Oh, it
honestly.
really is. Today, we are extracting the most fascinating insights from this great article titled 20 Shakespearean Words You Use Every Day.
Yeah, and it really shifts your perspective.
Totally. Our mission for you, the listener, is to discover how the vocabulary you use every single day, whether you're thinking, arguing, or just complaining about your life, was heavily shaped and in some cases completely hijacked by a single 16th century playwright.
Right, because we tend to operate under this illusion that language is this organic, ownerless cloud floating in the ether, slowly shifting over centuries.
Like it just happens by magic.
Exactly. But the reality is much more startling. Massive chunks of the English lexicon can actually be traced back to highly specific, deliberate moments of invention on a wooden stage in London.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the article throws out a staggering statistic right at the top. It says William Shakespeare is popularly credited with contributing up to 1,700 new words to the English language.
Yeah, that number is just massive.
1,700 words.
Uh-huh.
To put that in perspective, a lot of people only use around, 2,000 or 3,000 unique words in their daily conversational vocabulary.
Pretty much, yeah.
So this one man practically wrote half the dictionary. It's insane.
What's fascinating here is the nuance behind that massive number. When we say he contributed 1,700 words, well, literary scholars are constantly debating the actual mechanics of that contribution.
Right, like did he actually invent all of them?
Exactly. It is incredibly difficult to ascertain if all of these were his original from-scratch coinages. Some certainly were. He was a linguistic pioneer.
Sure, absolutely.
But others were words he simply recycled, by tearing apart grammar rules, like forcefully turning a pre-existing noun into an action verb.
Oh, I do that all the time on accident.
Mm-hmm. We all do. And in other cases, it might merely be the very first time peasant tavern slang was ever recorded in formal print.
Because he was writing popular entertainment, right?
Yeah.
His scripts were actually preserved and printed.
Precisely. The working class audience, the groundlings standing in the mud at the Globe Theater, they were probably inventing slang constantly.
But they didn't have printing presses to write it all down.
Exactly.
Still, I want to emphasize to you listening right now, whether he invented these words entirely from thin air or just acted as a giant cultural megaphone for street slang, you are constantly dropping his specific vocabulary into your emails, your texts, and your meetings.
Yeah, and understanding his impact really requires looking at how he manipulated the language that was already lying around him. We have to look at the mechanical constraints of his job.
Like the poetry itself.
Right. Shakespeare wrote in iambic pentameter. That's 10 syllables per line, alternating unstressed and stressed beats. Da-da-dum, da-da-da-da-da-da.
They're rigid.
Extremely. When you are locked into that rigid mathematical structure, you can't afford clunky phrasing. If you need a concept to fit into 2 beats instead of 4, well, you just invent a shorter word.
So before we get into this sweeping dramatic poetry, let's look at those actual mechanics. It really is a study in linguistic manipulation.
It really is.
Let's look at the word tardiness from the opening act of King Lear. If you've ever been late to a meeting, you are intimately familiar with this one.
Oh, for sure. So the French had already given the English language the adjective tardy following the Norman conquest. It was, a perfectly good descriptive word.
Right, like someone is tardy.
Exactly. But Shakespeare needed an abstract noun. He didn't want to describe a late person. He wanted to describe the actual state of being late.
Ah.
So he simply took the existing word tardy and glued the noun-forming suffix "simeness" to the end of it. Tardiness.
Wow.
He engineered a tangible state of being out of a loose adjective.
He just snapped a new ending onto it. It's like he was a kid playing with linguistic Legos.
That is a great way to put it.
He didn't always forge the plastic himself,
Yeah.
right? He just snapped existing prefixes and suffixes onto base words to see what interesting new shapes he could build.
Yes, and he did the exact same thing in his tragedy Timon of Athens with the word droplet.
Droplet, okay.
Yeah, the word drop obviously existed to describe water. And English already possessed the diminutive suffix "elet," which was used to signify something undersized, think booklet or piglet.
Right.
Shakespeare attached that "elet," the suffix, to drop to invent a droplet. And you have to remember the context of the Elizabethan theater here.
They didn't have CGI.
Exactly. They didn't have elaborate lighting or high-definition screens. The special effects had to happen entirely in the minds of the audience.
So a drop is just a mundane unit of water,
Mm-hmm.
but a droplet. Suddenly the audience is visualizing something incredibly delicate, spherical, and fragile.
It's brilliant.
He's literally doing high-speed visual effects with a three-letter suffix. And it's not just the ends of words either. He was playing with the beginnings, too.
Oh, definitely.
Take the word bedazzle from The Taming of the Shrew. I mean, when I hear bedazzle today, my mind instantly goes to a 1990s denim jacket covered in cheap rhinestones.
Which is fair, but the origin is quite a bit more severe than a rhinestone jacket. The root word dazzle dates back to medieval times, and it was essentially a medical term.
Wait, really? A medical term?
Yeah, it meant to temporarily lose your sight from staring directly at the sun or a bright light. It was a physical limitation.
Oh, wow.
Shakespeare picked up on that sense, but he weaponized it by attaching the intensifying prefix be to the front.
So it makes it stronger.
Exactly. By coining the verb bedazzle, he took a passive medical affliction and turned it into an active, overwhelming, almost magical force that one character could inflict upon another.
That is so cool. And once he figured out that he could just break the rules of grammar to get his point across, he started shifting the entire function of words.
Yes, the part of speech itself.
Yeah, the article brings up low-rated, which he used in Henry V English, had already picked up the verb rate from medieval French, meaning to estimate the value of something.
Right, to rate a property or goods.
Exactly. But Shakespeare bypassed the verb entirely and turned it into an adjective, low-rated, to describe a person or object that wasn't widely admired.
He had a habit of forcing verbs to do the work of adjectives, and vice versa. Like in Troilus and Cressida, he introduces the adjective splitting.
As in a splitting headache.
Yes, he used it to describe something possessing the sheer physical power to rend apart. It creates a visceral, violent image in the mind.
So the next time you complain to your boss that you have a splitting headache, you aren't just saying your head hurts.
Not at all.
You are quoting Troilus and Cressida to imply your skull is literally being torn apart by medieval forces. It's so dramatic.
It's incredibly dramatic. And then he takes a noun, like mud, in Hamlet, and turns it into the verb muddy.
Meaning to make a situation indistinct or confused.
Right. To muddy the waters, it demonstrates an incredible elasticity in the English language. He proved that words are not rigid statutes, they are highly flexible raw materials.
Building the words is just phase one, though. What I want to explore next is how the meaning of these inventions actually changes over time.
This is where it gets really fun.
Because the text points out that Shakespeare's specific usage often started as a highly literal physical description, but eventually evolved into the abstract, figurative mainstays we use today.
Yeah, barefaced is the perfect illustration of semantic drift.
Okay, lay it on me.
In A Midsummer Night's Dream, Shakespeare deployed the adjective barefaced to mean, quite literally, having a bare face. An entirely uncovered face, specifically lacking a beard.
So just a smooth face.
Exactly, it was a purely physical observation.
But then, just a few years later in Hamlet, Shakespeare updates his own definition.
He does.
He took his own literal invention and stretched it into the figurative sense we use today. He used it to mean undisguised, brazen, or overt, like a barefaced lie.
Right.
It's like taking a literal physical metal key that unlocks a wooden door, and eventually using the word key to describe the secret to a happy marriage. He takes physical reality and maps it onto an abstract concept.
And that transition happens because the audience embraces the physical metaphor. However, there is a fascinating tension between what Shakespeare intended and what modern culture decides to do with his frameworks.
Oh yeah, the article highlights the phrase after hours, which he used in both Romeo and Juliet and Richard III.
Right, which we still use.
Okay, wait, hold on. I need to push back on this one.
Oh, go for it.
The text explicitly says he used after hours to simply refer to the hours immediately following an event, just the literal passage of time.
Correct.
But today, if you invite me to an after-hours spot, nobody's thinking about chronological time. We strictly associate it with nightlife, underground bars, and drinking after work.
That's very true.
The definition is entirely hijacked by modern culture.
Yeah.
I mean, if I invent a standard red brick and 400 years later someone builds a giant skyscraper with it, you don't call me the architect of the skyscraper.
Right.
Why does he get the credit for our modern nightlife vocabulary?
Well, the brick analogy misses the psychological framing he provided. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it reveals how language is a continuous, living collaboration across centuries.
Okay, how so?
Shakespeare provided the architectural container, the exact phrasing, after hours. Language doesn't freeze the moment the ink dries on the parchment.
Right.
He gave us a compelling container to describe the hidden time when normal rules no longer apply. Modern society didn't hijack his word. We simply poured our own contemporary cultural anxieties and habits, in this case nightlife, into the container he built.
Okay. So he poured the foundation and we just built a nightclub on top of it. I guess that makes sense.
You see this exact same collaborative phenomenon with the word footfall.
Yes. This one is crazy.
Shakespeare coined footfall to refer strictly to the auditory experience, the literal sound or the physical setting down of a person's foot as they walk across a room.
But the article notes that the modern commercial use of the word, referring to the statistical number of potential customers walking into a retail shopping center, wasn't invented until the 1970s.
Exactly.
That is wild. Shakespeare invents a poetic word to describe the sound of a dramatic entrance on a stage, and nearly 400 years later, corporate middle management repurposes it on a spreadsheet to measure mall traffic.
It really speaks to the utility of his inventions. And sometimes he was simply identifying a clunky phrase in the culture and executing a brilliant piece of rebranding.
Which brings us to the shooting star.
Yes. Take the term shooting star, which he introduces in Act 2 of Richard II.
This one actually blew my mind, because the text points out that meteors streaking across the night sky have been universally known as falling stars since at least the 1400s. People already had a perfectly fine word for this thing.
And falling star is highly descriptive. I mean, it accurately describes gravity and downward motion.
Right.
But it lacks a certain poetry.
Oh, completely. Shooting star is infinitely more dynamic. Falling sounds passive, like, a clumsy person tripped over a rock.
Exactly.
But shooting sounds fast, intentional, energetic, and powerful. He literally just updated the marketing for meteorites, and society collectively agreed his version was vastly superior.
It is a muscular, vivid way to capture a natural phenomenon. He recognized that audiences didn't just want accuracy, they wanted spectacle.
Which perfectly bridges us away from literal descriptions of space rocks and footsteps. Because, updating the branding for a meteor is impressive, but it's still just describing a rock in the sky.
True.
Where I think he actually rewired our brains, and where he truly left his mark on you and me, is how he forced us to look inward. He essentially had to invent the vocabulary for human psychology and our internal emotional dramas.
Absolutely. Shakespeare possessed a profound ability to encapsulate incredibly complex psychological states into highly efficient, standardized words.
Like the word eventful.
Let's look at eventful. From his comedy As You Like It, he coined the phrase strange, eventful history.
Right.
He needed a single word to compress the feeling of a life packed with incident, excitement, and memorable experiences.
And hot-blooded. From the Merry Wives of Windsor, he wrote of the work of the hot-blooded gods.
Yes, and that ties into Elizabethan medicine, which relied on the theory of humors.
Right, the idea that your body was filled with blood, phlegm, and bile.
Exactly. Shakespeare took that literal, visceral medical belief and warped it into a personality trait to describe someone with easily roused, violent emotions.
He literally changed how we describe a temper. And then he shifts from the fiery to the deeply cold with characterless, from Troilus and Cressida.
He invented this to describe mighty states that are rendered characterless to dusty nothing.
Wow.
It means having no original, identifiable, or redeeming features. It is a devastating, hollow critique.
Dusty nothing is such a haunting image. And he also provides baseless in The Tempest, describing something completely devoid of foundation, groundless or unreasonable.
Like a baseless accusation.
Exactly. Oh, and priceless. Found in his 1594 narrative poem, The Rape of Lucrece, used to describe something of such inestimable value that money can't capture it. What priceless wealth!
Stringing them all together, eventful, hot-blooded, characterless, baseless, priceless, you begin to realize these aren't just vocabulary words.
No, they're not.
They are the fundamental psychological tools we use to negotiate our relationships and process human behavior.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. I have to ask you.
Okay.
Did people simply lack the ability to process these complex emotional states before this? Or was Shakespeare just the ultimate marketer for the human condition?
That's a great question.
Like, were people walking around feeling hot-blooded but just didn't have a snappy way to communicate it to their friends?
Well, human emotion hasn't fundamentally changed. A peasant in the 14th century certainly felt the sudden, unreasonable surge of rage that we would call being hot-blooded.
Right, they still got mad.
Of course.
Yeah.
But we know from linguistics that it is incredibly difficult for society to collectively process or discuss a concept without a specific word for it.
Oh, yeah.
What Shakespeare did was package abstract, messy feelings into standardized, highly evocative terms. By giving a feeling a specific name, he made it easier for the culture to identify it, analyze it, and share it.
So he didn't invent the feelings, he gave us the labels for the jars we were already keeping our feelings in.
Exactly. That is a perfect way to describe it.
That is incredible. But his work wasn't entirely trapped in abstract emotions and high-minded psychology. We need to pivot here, because the article also dives into how intensely grounded, physical, and frankly fatal the realities in his plays were.
Yeah, his vocabulary never stayed in the clouds for long. It was heavily rooted in the mud, the blood, and the anatomy of his era.
Let's start with a funny one. The word leaky. The article highlights a line from Antony and Cleopatra where Mark Antony's chief confidant, Enobarbus, mutters, "Thou art so leaky that we must leave thee to thy sinking."
And he uses it again in The Tempest, too.
Right. His works provide the earliest known print records of this relatively simple adjective. But can we just appreciate that line? Thou art so leaky that we must leave thee to thy sinking.
It's hilarious.
That is an elite, top-tier 17th century burn.
It really is remarkably effective insult comedy, comparing a flawed human being to a doomed ship.
So good.
But contrast that comedic insult with his use of the word dislocate in King Lear. The verb itself existed slightly earlier in a general sense, but King Lear provides the absolute earliest record we have of the medical use of the word.
Which is wild.
Right. Shakespeare used dislocate to refer specifically to the painful anatomical displacement of a bone or joint.
I couldn't get over this detail. I mean, you have a theater playwright, a guy whose job is to entertain drunk people in the afternoon,
Yeah.
essentially doing a doctor's job of recording medical terminology.
It's definitely unusual.
How does a stage writer beat the royal medical community to the punch on classifying a joint injury?
This raises an important question about the nature of a successful dramatist in Jacobean society. To write plays that resonated with every class of society, well, you couldn't be isolated in an aristocratic ivory tower.
You had to know the people.
Shakespeare had to be a sponge. He had to intensely observe every corner of London life, from the taverns and the docks to the royal courts, the battlefields, and the apothecaries.
So he was just listening in on everyone.
Exactly. He was constantly absorbing the highly specialized jargon of doctors, soldiers, and merchants, and then injecting it directly into popular mass media.
By putting it in a play, he was basically distributing medical jargon to the masses.
Exactly.
And he observed everything, not just the loud or violent moments. He coined the word noiseless in Act 4 of King Lear as a beautifully descriptive synonym for absolute silence.
And in As You Like It, he coined the verb outstay.
As in to outstay a welcome.
Right. It shows him observing the quiet, grounded, and very real social anxieties of domestic human interaction.
We've all had dinner guests who outstay their welcome, for sure. But, you know, he can snap right back from relatable domestic anxiety to the terrifying, fatal realities of his era. Which brings us to the word widowmaker.
That one is intense.
Very.
The earliest recorded use of the noun widowmaker stems from Shakespeare's retelling of King John. It is such a visceral, chilling compound word.
Paints an immediate picture.
It does. And what is most fascinating is its endurance. Today, widowmaker is primarily used in military context to refer to notoriously deadly weaponry or aircraft.
And in medicine, too, right?
Yes, in cardiology to describe a specific, highly fatal type of heart attack. The gravity and terror of the word haven't diminished one bit in 400 years.
It's completely fatalistic. I mean, he doesn't just describe a sword or a weapon. He forces you to look at the human consequence of that weapon.
Oh, yeah, it makes widows.
It skips past the metal and goes straight to the grief. It's brilliant and utterly terrifying.
It perfectly encapsulates his genius. He wasn't just naming objects. He was naming the human wreckage those objects leave behind.
So what does this all mean? I mean, we've traveled from French prefixes and syllable counts to 1970s retail foot traffic, from barefaced lies to medical bone dislocations, and from falling stars to widowmakers.
It's been a journey.
It really has.
Ultimately, it means that language is arguably our most intimate, invisible inheritance.
I like that. Invisible inheritance.
The core takeaway from this journey through the article is that you are living your life inside a linguistic framework engineered by a man who died over 4 centuries ago.
Yeah.
The next time you suffer a splitting headache, or you complain to your boss about a coworker's tardiness, or, you recount an incredibly eventful night out at an after-hours spot, you aren't just communicating, you are, quite literally speaking, Shakespeare.
We are all just walking around quoting 16th century plays to each other without even realizing it. which leaves me with a brand new thought for you to ponder.
Oh, let's hear it.
We talked at the beginning about how people often invent words just to solve a practical problem, right? Like fitting a line into iambic pentameter or trying to entertain the masses.
Right, the mechanical constraints.
Yeah, so if a single playwright could so heavily shape the modern English dictionary simply by writing popular mass entertainment, what does that mean for us today in the hyper-connected age of the internet?
Wow, that's a deep rabbit hole.
Right. Are the slang terms, the viral phrases, and the bizarre recycled verbs that we casually invent on social media today going to be studied by serious literary scholars 400 years from now?
I mean, they might be.
Are the internet memes of today going to become the new Shakespearean vocabulary of tomorrow?
It is a wild proposition, but, the internet has essentially become our global globe theater, and millions of people are collectively playing with those linguistic Legos every single day.
Something for you to think about the next time you drop a new slang word in a group chat. You might just be writing the dictionary of the 25th century.
You never know.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep playing with your words, and we will catch you next time.